We're pleased to welcome the commissioner of the league, Mike Morreale. And Commish, listen, I'm going to jump right into this and say to you, strictly as a fan here, I know nothing about basketball, but watching from the outside, it looks like you have the perfect start. You get the dream scenario going with momentum to the start of this season. Am I right?
You're right. I think if I said anything otherwise, people would be looking at me like I'm crazy. So we've had a tremendous start to the season. We continue to get better year in and year out on the court, off the court, fans in the stands. So I am very grateful for all those people that are coming out to watch Canadian basketball. I think that's the real interesting part here. This is like a made in Canada experience, played by talented Canadians, but, sprinkled in with obviously really good imports and internationals. But it's exciting to see how it's turned out so far.
Sure. But Jalen Harris, the former Raptor, won a game for Saskatchewan the other night. So let's get real about it. He's a big star, too. It's all fun. It's all really exciting. And I feel like these cities are contesting each other to one-up each other in attendance. That's obviously a thing. You can't buy that, Mike. That just kind of happened. Yeah.
I think it's very similar to these rivalries that are being created. Obviously, there are some inherent rivalries because of other sports, but then there are the ones that are just developing because, fan bases are now really, really, really getting behind their home team. I think, over the last several years, we continue to grow and have done really good things. Fans have come out to the arenas to watch their team and to celebrate and kind of figure out what the CEBL is all about, what the respective team is. And now they're coming in full support of their home team. And I think that's a big change when you look at, how our fans are interacting, where it was more curious to begin with. Obviously, we have our diehards, ones have been with us since day one, and we love them. And then we got a lot of tire kickers, and those tire kickers are now turning into bona fide fans that are buying season tickets and doing everything you need to, make sure you can stay around for a long, long time.
Do you recall, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but off the top of your head, what that attendance figure was in Calgary, which I believe is the league record right now on opening night?
That is 12,327. I won't forget that one right yet.
Till Thursday night in Saskatoon, Mike. Yeah. But I was following it all. And I really got the sense that was like an emotional night for the Calgarians. Yourself, of course, you're the commissioner of the league. But just for sports people, the basketball community of Calgary, which I realize is a big one, they really just explain what it was like to be there, please.
Well, I think if you look deep at that Calgary kind of situation, we have to remember that was a team announced right here, by the way, on this show that left Guelph, right after our 2022 season and headed over to Calgary without an ownership group. Just a fresh start. We just believe that market was ripe for what we were trying to do. And within a couple of days, I received a phone call from potential owners that turned out to be the owners. And from there, they really, really have done a tremendous job of turning that team into the hometown team. And that's kind of the tagline they used. And they went to all four quadrants of that city and talked to everybody. And it's paid off. I mean, to establish yourself in a short period of time, less than a year, and then less than a year later be playing in, a massive venue at the Saddle Dome and pulling in over 12,000 fans is quite the accomplishment. So, and to put on, never mind the basketball game, but the experience that went along with playing the game there and the level of, professionalism that went into delivering that game, off the court was tremendous. So there is a lot of good things happening across the league. Calgary is certainly one of them. And I'm just very happy for not just the organization, but for the basketball fans in that city.
I also know, Commissioner Morreale, that they went out into the rural communities and held camps with their players and the kids. And I don't know if you knew, but I come from the country. I'm a farm kid. We think people forget about us out there. And so don't think that wasn't a huge factor for the surge to bring in the outlying communities too. But here's another one. I want to ask you what it's meant to have Chuck Swirsky calling games and Amy Audibert of now my NBA team, the Miami Heat, and Rod Black. Like I've had somebody say they turned on the game, saw Rod, and it was instant credibility. What has that crew meant for your league?
Well, I think you said it. I think we've been able to acquire and work with some of the best sports basketball broadcasters around. And the tone of that voice, when you flipping through the channels, you recognize it. And you may not recognize who's playing on the court or what league is being played, but you're going to pause and say, what's going on here? You hear Rod's voice or you hear Chuck's voice. I mean, they're synonymous with basketball and other sports. And then you add the Amy's and the Paul Joneses, and pretty soon Bill Wennington will be joining his buddy Chuck Swirsky to call some games in Montreal. So, it's just leveling up what we do on a regular basis and making sure that when we are on linear television, that we put our best foot forward. And we want people to stop and think they're watching an NBA style game. And I think most people that are flipping through the channels end up on a CBL broadcast one night and end up sticking around because they're curious, number one, and then they're engaged by what's happening on the court and in the arenas.
Yeah, well, hey, and for those, of course, here on Game Plus Television, one of the two networks that are carrying CEBL games. But I'm wondering how many people, Mike, are now jumping on the bandwagon of the CEBL. Like, I first learned of Amy watching the bubble games in St. Catharines. She was on the broadcast. So she's no Johnny come lately or Jane come lately, to the CE. I'm sure there's a lot of people that now, oh, yeah, like, where were you 6 years ago? She was a day one gal, but are you seeing some of that? Tell me.
Absolutely. There's a lot of room on the bandwagon, put it that way. So we'll take all comers. But I do have a soft spot, obviously, for those that came at the very beginning and just bought into something that, could have been very precarious given, sports landscape across the country for domestic sports leagues. And then, followed up with a couple years of COVID. And then, we kind of almost have to start all over again in 2022. So those kind of day oneers, both from fans, from employees, from teams, from anybody associated with it, they have seen this from the very beginning, and I'm very proud of it. I know, Rod, you have been part of this journey as well, even from your seat where you've sat at. Me coming on this show 6-7 years ago, trying to explain to you what the CBL is all about, and now fast forward to where we are now, and I think the discussion's a little bit different.
Yeah, well, I literally just went to the games because of you and Lee. I don't know anything about basketball. I just know that it's fun. And which, by the way, I was saying I went to Saskatoon Slam games 30 years ago, and this is important. And we're running out of time here, but we got time for this because it's important. The Saskatoon sports fans felt burned, as you probably know, by past ownership groups there. So it's not like they don't like basketball, but they didn't trust that the Rattlers were going to be around for long. And somebody said to me the other day, they're like, I hope this league lasts because it's great. I said, it'll last if you go. Buy a ticket. The league's not the problem. You know what I mean? So, and that's why I think in Saskatoon, I think you could have, well, I hope that they set a record on Thursday night. I'm going to be there. But that's it. That's a market that's people are sleeping on, I think. Agree or disagree?
I agree with you. And I think once we get some local ownership there, which is my job to do, is find those local business owners, corporate entities, et cetera, to really localize that in a way that it's proudly Saskatoon and Saskatchewan based. That's the next step. That's the next jump that'll happen out there, along with some of our other teams that are searching for that local ownership, which is the reason we built this league, was to build it, and they will come and explain it. And I can tell you, after you put 12,000 people in the stands, or 9,000 in Winnipeg, or 7,000 here, et cetera, the phone rings, the emails start with interest, not just to go to a game, but to perhaps one day be an owner in the CBL as well. So it's all coming together.
Yeah, I see that. And I also know you well enough to know you will never, ever, ever put your feet up and go, job well done. But I will say this, proud of what you have done, and keep it going. It's fun to watch, Mike. I'll see you in an arena here this summer.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Rod. Much appreciated.
As always, thank you. The commissioner of the Canadian Elite Basketball League.